Good morning. Oh, good morning. I miss having Miss Shannon up here as an MC to get us all going. Yep. Yeah, this is an artist panel. I'm Teva Dawson. I'm just facilitating this, and we have a few questions for the artists just to get us rolling, and then as things come up for you all, we'll be happy to have a little Q&A as well. First thing I want to do is just have each team of artists or artists themselves introduce themselves and talk a little bit about your project for Arts Across the Prairie, which is a placemaking effort across 8 regions in North Dakota. We've got 3 different projects represented today, and I'm just going to ask the artists to kick off by talking about them. 2 of them have a little show and tell to offer as well, which I love. You guys want to kick it off? There's 3 mics.
Oh. Good morning, and thank you all for coming at this lovely hour. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but certainly not here. First of all, we're honored to be here, and we're honored to work once again in North Dakota. North Dakota was the first place I ever worked as an artist as a young woman. I was in residence with the artists in the schools, and I've always fallen in love with the landscape and the people, so we're really happy to be back. What we're making is a homage to the people, and it is going to be a gigantic feather, and it will be the largest glass and steel sculpture in the world, which is, if you think about, quite amazing and also quite good for the economy, because basically Guinness World Records comes and verifies these things, and people come because they want to see something like this, and they want to see something that's actually beautiful and elegant and fits into the landscape, like part of the landscape itself, like the hills and the glacial lakes. They want to see that because that is something you don't normally see every day. And it's a gigantic feather because of the fact that this is this area that we're sited, and it's outside of Rugby in a bison ranch that's been, the bison have been roped off, so it's safe, somewhat. This is the place where all 56% of the waterfowl in America come and migrate, have a hot dog or a hamburger on their way to the next location, but this is where they come through. And so we wanted to remind people of that they were living in that place, that important place where glaciers once stood, and this is very glacial as a format. So do you want to talk a little bit about the form real quick?
So I'm Alan Milligan. I do the sculpture, and my wife. This is Nicole.
Hello, Nicole.
And she does the beautiful color in the glass. So I'm all about the form, and she's all about the joyousness. So this is a maquette, a small model. The first one I did to kind of figure out how this is going to be possible. It's actually going to be more feather-like. There'll be more of these tines on the top, and then the glass will go in between. You can see the glass. You can have a look at it closer later when we come off.
The last 20 part is actually down. So it'll actually sit up higher, and it'll be anchored underneath it. So you won't really see it on a plinth or anything like that. It'll just be in the field. Well, so how this process goes is we're going to go into the community and have people work with us to make glass, hopefully. If we can arrange for that, we really want to arrange for that because there's nothing more fun than making glass. Do you want to show that? No, they can't see that at all. But they're polite and they're nodding. Do you see how they're all nodding? Oh yeah, sure, Alan, we can see that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's good that you brought it. I just want to show you the kind of piece of glass.
I should add, if folks want to see it, it is on the website for the North Dakota Arts Council if you want to go back and see images.
And it's also on our website, themilliganstudio.com. And as we make this, you can actually go into our website and see it in process in real time. We post as we go so that everyone can be involved in the process. Everyone can say, I saw how that was made. And sometimes the backstory things like when George Floyd happened, we worked through the pandemic. When the pandemic happened, you see like neighborhood kids who have put I love you signs all over our studio, keep up the good work and things like that. You see all that as part of the history of the piece that we make for you. because we want you to be part of it. But this is, if you can see, we have a particular technique that includes golden frit that's actually glass, that's actually gold and metals. And it's this piece itself, it is encased in stainless, and it actually has, well, when we put it up, it has the, what is it? It's not rubber, I'm not awake yet, silicone. So it has a buffer so that the winds won't be able to move it. And this piece actually, when you look at it, it looks like it's straight, like it would be a great wind catch, but sail, like a big sail. But it actually isn't, because when it's actually made, the tines are in and out so that the wind goes through it. So it's structurally engineered to withstand the North Dakota winds. So I think that's all. We've taken a lot of time, but we just want to show you this. Dark to light. It looks just like water. Can you see it in the light? Yeah. Oh, good. See? Big visual aids. Thank you very much.
Do you guys have a name? Have you named it for? No, not yet. It's okay if it's.
No. We had a name for a while. I think we want to keep it open.
Okay. And when do you expect yours to be installed? What's the timeline?
Well, we're waiting for legislative funding, and then after that, probably we're going to begin like at the first of the year, getting people organized and things like that, and start. It's just going to take almost a year if we had to do it by ourselves. But we got to get the community involved,
Yep.
Because we can't make this together. So we're going to try to set that up around January, February, and then begin in spring and work as best as we can and get it in before next winter, hopefully.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thane, you have a project near Crosby.
Hi, good morning. My name is Thane Lund. I'm the Region 1 artist working south of Crosby. The work that I'm working on at this time is earthwork sculpture. Tobias has a model. You're welcome to pass that around and see it hands-on. The artwork shapes the earth in this ripple formation if you're from a bird's eye perspective. A lot of the Region 1 open call literature was talking about how water has shaped this region, and it's evident in the glacial till and the prairie potholes. So from that vantage point, you have this like ripple effect, but architecturally it makes this space that functions as an observatory and really can accentuate what the visitor brings. There isn't a whole lot of visual field in the artwork, but it makes possible a space for contemplation and a space to appreciate the changing and ephemeral nature of this landscape. Even this morning, I just saw this cloud structure and rainbow coming with the sunrise, and that's exactly what I want to accentuate, is like a place where people can go and really be with the landscape and be with the seasons. I think growing up here, I'm from Divide County, so it's really an interesting return to come back and present something that, in my imagination, would be really wonderful for the community and for people that live in the region. With the changes of season, I wanted a place that if you see it once, you actually are compelled to come back again and see it again. And perhaps if it's a place of solitude, it's a place that you make it a ritual to return to. Where we're at in the process is we just got a site this summer after relocating, so I'm currently revising the project, tweaking the shape a little bit and trying to settle it into a new space because it was originally for a much different spot. Yeah, I'm just excited to be moving forward. This winter will be engineering and getting a construction plan, and hopefully we're breaking ground next June.
Thank you. And then we have Raya and Son, the most recently, I think, selected artists.
Double mic it. Okay. Hi, I'm Raya Christensen. I'm a mosaic artist primarily. This is my husband and art partner, Son McColgan, sculptor. We work independently as artists and also collaboratively on public art. Our piece is in Region 8, about a 12-minute drive west of Medora off of Old Highway 10 in the Badlands on National Forest land, which is really grassland right there. Our piece we're calling Hoodoo Herd. It should resemble sort of an abstract group of rocks that loosely resemble a herd of animals. And when you look closely, they also suggest the transformation of a bison into a man. That image came from reading about North Dakota and people's strong connection to the land, as well as the changes culturally, spiritually, and ecologically to this area, and people's resilience, in that they remain connected to this land. The legs of the hoodoo herd will be most likely set on a pier foundation and will be cast concrete covered in mosaic tile that I will make with the surrounding communities around this area. And then the bodies of the herd will be made out of bronze that Son will fabricate in Austin and bring to the site. And I understand that we'll also be working with groups of artists, young artists, through the fabrication process as sort of a mentoring program that the North Dakota Council on the Arts is sponsoring. Do you want to?
They're coordinating it. Unfortunately, we don't really have any visual aids with us. I wish we did. We're pretty fresh as far as
we just got the job.
We were just awarded the project. Time has no meaning anymore. A month ago. So as far as where we are in the process, we have our initial design, and we'll go back and since we're working with the Forest Service on this as well, we have sort of an additional, not necessarily a stakeholder, but they are a stakeholder in their own way, because they have some specific ideas about palette and materials and things like that they
Sculptures to look like it belongs there.
and which is really what we had in mind anyway. It's not the site itself lends itself to, you don't want something to compete, because it's such a spectacular site. You don't want, you're kind of walking the line to where you really want to catch people's attention coming off the highway to where they can see it, but you also don't want something that's really bright or gaudy or anything like that. We really wanted to have something that just felt like it had always been there and was just kind of emerging out of the earth. And so that's the beauty of site-specific sculpture, is that it really, and the challenge that we had is that we hadn't actually been to the site before we designed the sculpture. And so we had really good photos that the council had sent us, but there's no substitute for actually being able to sit in silence and sort of contemplate where you are, and then watch there's some train tracks that go by pretty close to the site. And so it's pretty magical to be out there in total silence and just to see this train coming down the way. And so, which was also, now that I see that the train is there, I didn't know that before, so, that may kind of influence how we go back and sort of finalize our design. Our process is, we pretty much almost always like to create a model, an actual physical model of what we're going to present. And so that'll be, I feel like that'll be the next step for us, is to, I like to do it. I'm not really a computer person. I'm sort of a Luddite in some ways, and so Riot is the computer expert in our team.
Hardly.
But
I'm just slightly better than him.
that's not saying much. She's way better than that. I'm real bad on the computer. I really enjoy the process of actually creating a model, and it helps me sort of figure out in my mind how the piece is going to be made and put together. And so that's going to be a fun process, and I look forward to doing that. And maybe the next convening we'll share that with you.
Well, yeah, it also looks, right now the timeline looks like we'll be doing final design over the next year, and then next summer, I will come up and hold a series of tile workshops with surrounding communities, probably in 6 different or 7 different locations, trying to get as many people from the entire region involved. And then I'm going to work with local ceramicists here, firing those tiles here, and then I'll take them back to Austin, and we'll prepare all the other pieces to bring up probably the following spring. So hopefully we're looking at installation in spring or summer of 2026.
Thank you. As everyone can hear, these are remarkable pieces that are proposed to come in or will come in, and they're very site responsive. They're just going to be beautiful works of art. I'm very curious to hear from the artists what they think collectively they hope the impact will be, or what will be the unfolding in this state when all 8 pieces come in. What do you feel like the impact will be?
Well, I think it'll make a profound effect, because what you're doing is you're saying, this is my community, this is who I am. And so people will be able to drive through North Dakota and see the heart of each community. And that's such an interesting thing, because it's very hard to understand North Dakota unless you're here, isn't it? I mean, it is a place of great beauty and a place of great wildness. You know, the weather is amazing. And the people are wonderful and warm and open. And each community gets the opportunity to say, I'm here, this is who I am. And I think all of America misses that. So when they come, it'll generate, of course, economics, we all know that. But I think there's that other level, that human level, that artists bring to the table by working closely with the community and taking their dreams and visions and making it real. We say at the Milligan Studio that we defy gravity with joy. And I think that would be something that we give to America and Europe and everyone who comes, China, everyone who comes to this place.
Yeah, I think something really unique that stands out to me is the involvement of the stakeholders of each region. So it's been very much about the community, and it's been in constant conversation with the community, and it's being carried out only by the help of the community. So this is happening in each of the regions and is making each of these artworks very unique and personal. I sometimes tell my friends when they're asking like how the project's going, like that North Dakota as a state is making a sculpture park, but it's on North Dakota proportions. So it needs to be 200 miles between each artwork. So, and I know personally I'm often motivated if I know there's something I want to see, whether it's historical or artistic, architectural, I will make the journey. And I think this is going to be a great way for the state to tie together and rope in all these regional attractions, and you can chart your path and discover a lot of things on the map.
I have a feeling Sun and I might have different answers on this one. I definitely, for me, one of my passions over the last 10 years has been making community mosaics. I do mosaics by myself too, but one of the reasons that these projects have become some of the most rewarding of my career is because they are very, very joyful activities. People like making things together. All people, all ages, like making things together. And people are also really enjoy discovering that they're creative. All people are creative, but they just may not know it until they have, space and license to sit down and create something that's part of a larger thing. It's a wonderful experience. I really enjoy helping other people experience that joy. And it extends once the piece is made and people are interacting with it and they're finding their tile and they're saying, I made that. It's just it's a hopeful thing to do in any time, period. And so, yeah, that's definitely an impact that I expect with this piece.
As I've been here over the last 3 or 4 days, and I would echo what Thane said about the involvement of the stakeholders. There's really a palpable excitement about these projects, which I find really refreshing and not always the case with community art. A lot of times there is definitely a community engagement aspect of it, and that is becoming more and more common. from when I started, as far as the scope and depth of engaging the public as far as what they would like to see in a sculpture, which is always, it's always a little tricky to walk the line because you're receiving input from so many people, and so it can't really be, a design by committee. It's like, well, I'm the artist and I'm taking all this in, and I'm gonna try and gather the essence of what you're saying, not like I want to see a dragon here, or I want to, because like on some of these, I recently did one where I've just got all these wild answers of what they wanted to see in the artwork, and I'm just like, I don't even know how to incorporate all of this. And so this is a different process from that, because this is really people, from what I'm gathering, the stakeholders, they've made their decision and they trust the artist, but they want to be involved and they're excited about it happening, which I think is just fantastic. Because long term, we're from Texas. We're gonna make this artwork, and we want to make it. We want to make something that the community really has pride in, and that they feel really good about, and they want to tell their friends, and they want to tell people, hey, you really need to go down Highway 10 and check this out. Yesterday, we met with Amy McCann, who is a communications director, I believe, for the new Roosevelt Library that's opening in Medora, which is, right around the corner from where the sculptures are going to be. And so we were coordinating with her, and she was really excited about it happening. She knew that it was happening. And so what she pointed out was that the Buffalo Gap Trail goes right within a half mile of where the sculpture is sited. And so she wants to sort of use the sculpture as sort of because there's a lot of this is about bringing people into this area, and the Roosevelt Library is going to bring a lot of people into the area. They're not going to have much problem doing that, but this is just another point of connection, and another thing, just one more thing to bring people to Medora, and another thing for them to see while they're there. So it was really great to be able to talk to her and feel her excitement about it. And so we'll be in contact with her, and so she can kind of point people in that direction when they, have information at the library about the whole sculpture as a whole too. I mean, that's the thing. It's not just about that sculpture, but people will be educated that this is just one of the 8 sculptures in North Dakota. So that's just something else that people can get excited about while they're here. So I think that's fantastic.
Did you have something else you wanted to add?
Well, I was thinking earlier, she asked us what the name of our project was, and it is Sky Dream. That's what we thought about it, the idea of the sky dreaming of itself. And the idea of, and I hope that stays, but this is a big dream of North Dakota. Each one of these sculptures is North Dakota dreaming of itself, really, if you think about it. I mean, the fact that people can come to my place and put glass together, they don't have to have any artistic, but they want to be part of it. And for generations, they'll be able to take their grandkids there and their grandkids, and they'll say, Grandpa, great-grandpa, put some glass in this. Look at this, look at this. This is us. This is us dreaming of ourselves. And I think that, and I applaud you as a state for doing this, because to encourage one's dreams, as they said, if you build it, they will come. And this is just an actual real-life situation where the entire state is dreaming and inviting people to read those dreams and to be part of it.
Thank you. Yes, I feel like the process is as important as the product, right? So there's the way that the leadership has done a great job in convening stakeholders in each community to make sure that there's just an attachment of love to your pieces after you guys move on. I'm also curious about your creative process. Working with artists, I'm always curious about when they get that proposal, so this sheet of a bunch of information, to the point where you have a project in mind. What is your process you go through to get to that point where you go, aha, that's the thing I know we want to move forward with to propose? What is that creative process for each of you?
I always start out by reading a whole lot about the area and the history and the people who are in, where the art is going. I look for novels that are associated with that area. I look for, I read a lot of Wikipedia. I look at imagery, at landscape. For me, I just have to like start like sucking up stuff like a sponge and just getting ideas flowing. The stakeholders of Region 8 put out a lot of material to get us started in the first place. I mean, there was like full histories on every single county in Region 8. There was links to various Wikipedia pages that you wanted us to read. I mean, so that was a great start as well. And for me, it starts, so reading and then responding to things that really intrigue me. I knew that the hoodoos, well, parts of your all's landscape in western North Dakota are very familiar to us being from Texas. Western Texas, parts of New Mexico where we love to camp and hike have a very similar feel. So there was already kind of an attraction that we felt towards this area of the Badlands. Rock formations are something that we love and that greatly influences sun sculpture anyway, which is one of the reasons we applied for this job, because we were like, oh, I think that like we're perfect for this. It would be so much fun, and that space is so amazing. So I kind of knew that being on forestry land, it seemed appropriate to create a form that looked like it could have eroded from that landscape with its surroundings. So that was where it started. The the image of man and animal, for me just was, we were trying to capture the energy of movement and change. Traveling across that landscape, it's so horizontal, it's so wide open. Driving through North Dakota, you see the herds moving, and think about the cattles being pushed, so there's just like this idea of movement and change, how to capture that. That naturally seemed to evolve into the imagery that we came up with. And from there, it just, then it's just more like, so how do we do this with the materials we like to work with, So I don't know if that answered your question exactly, but did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge to do something so quickly. We didn't have a lot of time to come up with the proposal, which I think in some ways is a good thing, because sometimes you can just sit there and if you have too much time, nothing's ever done, right? So at this point, you just keep tweaking and going back and like, this isn't right, and doing that. So in some ways, this was an interesting exercise because the turnaround time was so quick on it, to where it was on speed almost, just like go, and then hope for the best. But I think Raya really did a great job on this, as far as kind of capturing the essence of a place that she had never been, and including the community, and the tile making is also a big part of it too. And yeah, that's about all I have to say about that.
For those who don't know, the process was twofold. There was a RFQ, which you present a lot of written portions and credentials, and then followed by the finalist selection and the proposal for the artwork. For me, the initial inquiry into any proposal, I go into a really intense research phase, and to the delight of my partner, I have this like resting thinking face for too long. And I just, I really try to put myself into the space of North Dakota again, and where it is now, and how much it's changed, and that history, and like I was finding new things and revisiting things that I'd seen before, just really trying to like throw as much in there as I could, along with the stakeholders portion, because it is a lot of different things. You can't, for me, I don't think I can articulate every single gesture in that RFQ, but I can distill it and try to come out with something that is relevant. And I think what really stuck out with me is like I wanted something of large scale with this, and I often work where the idea comes first, and then I find the materials to meet that idea. Some initial sketches with metal and concrete, they seemed kind of imposed, and they weren't getting to the scale I wanted, so I've decided I wanted to do an earthwork where I can use a lot of the materials on the site and things that I can truck in locally. So then once I decided on earthwork for this one, I worked in clay just to model different shapes, work fast, and ultimately settled on a form that I, in the 2-week time period could then just make a decision and move forward with that. And it came up with this observatory shape, but initially, like, I've had other sketches for something like that, but to make it accessible was a big goal of mine. So the challenge of getting this interior space that is very personal, but even someone like my 90-year-old grandmother could get there with ease, that was a goal of mine. And I looked at tunneling and stairs and ultimately found this way to just make a pathway that wraps around the contour. The North Dakota landscape is so expansive. That was another goal that I was trying to do, is like make something that can distill that and encapsulate a really personal space. And so if you even look in historically of like nomadic people on the plains, there's this footprint of a teepee, which is like this element of like an individual or a family unit. And the sculpture, the interior space is proportionate to that. It's very much just the footprint of this family unit, and it from there unravels and joins up with a bigger ecosystem. We all know this experience here of seeing for many, many miles, and the agoraphobes in the community will appreciate a place that's a little bit more tight-knit.
Well, our process, we're just going to talk about our process. Our process begins with interpretive dance. It's true. I will be going through, so here I am, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I've got 3 dogs at my feet. I got a cup of coffee because I need it. Really, a big cup of coffee. And I am going through what is out there in the world, what they're offering us as artists. Now, I was a New York Times bestseller. I wrote a book called In the Company of Angels. I've written a book called Whale Season, which was hilarious. I've written all these different kinds of literary and funny books, so I am a word person, and words excite me. And I will go through and I'll say, oh, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting, well, what will Alan want to do? Because that's always the case, because I'm the interpretive dancer. So he's in the studio, right, and he's welding, and he's cranky, and he's really cranky, and he's welding, and I come out and go, oh my God, North Dakota has this thing. It's amazing. When I was there, and then I was at Turtle Mountain and it was, and then a feather, we could do a feather, because and he goes, okay, all right, draw that. Now, I'm a word person, so that means like, hold that thought, honey, and I'll get to that later. But I start to go and I start to do the research, because I've already done the interpretive dance. I'm this way, I'm that way. I'm like, and it could be like this, and there's this thing, and then there are people, and he's like, draw that. So after I get all the words together and I find the history, because I'm a historian, I have a doctorate in history from Bath Spa University in England, and or I did some conservation work too, but I have this moment where it's an epiphany. I can see it, but I can't draw it. So I go into the studio, and he's still grinding and cursing, and it's lovely. And there's a cacophony. And so what do you think when I walk in the room?
I don't know.
He doesn't even want to talk about it. I love it. Some of us are morning people. Have you noticed that too? So think of your own life. Can you imagine having a wife like me who's been up since 6 o'clock in the morning, and she's excited and she's dancing and jumping? So eventually at lunch, once I feed the bear, we sit down and we start to maybe sketch a little bit. I sketch something and he sketches something, and suddenly it catches, We talk about the place. We see films about the place. We see the things. As soon as he goes and picks up the iPad and says, well, let's see exactly what that looks like, I know a design begins. And so my interpretive dance it goes this way. It's like okay, kind of a bison, kind of like a bison shape, and sort of like a glacial gorge before they all melted away and became puddles, big puddles, great puddles, but puddles. And so how do we do this? And it becomes shape. And then I go downstairs and I start to throw glass in the kiln. And I'm thinking about sunrises and things, and I'm just making this blob. It's like 2 feet by 2 feet, and it takes me a week to do it. And it becomes the texture and the color. Do I want the metallics in it? Do we want that? Do we want that shine? How do we make it as part of the earth? How do we make it as part of the sun? How do we make the soul of the sky? How do we make the soul of the sky? What is the soul of the sky like? And that's the process. And you begin, and you take it out of the kiln. It cooks for 36 hours, and you take it out, and you've got this slab that you're so tired, and you can hardly carry it. And you go into the grinding, cursing workshop, and you go, darling, this is the soul of the sky, or at least my version, on a lot of caffeine. And then shape. And then we were doing an RFQ, which is qualifications, right? But suddenly we're making things because we have to make the shape. We have to understand it physically. We have to realize we can be part of this. This is our world. This is what we do. We take the words and we translate them into color and light and joy. And we take the metal and we mold it and we shape it and we bend it and we burn it and we curse it and we praise it. And we praise it. And then we make dinner and walk the dogs. That's our process.
Alan, did she say you were cranking, or did she call you cranky? I wasn't
Cranky.
sure. Okay, that's what.
It's dispersions on my character at this time in the morning. That's her perspective. Just to qualify that. I'm a delight. But the interpretive dance is correct. It is a lot of arm gestures, which I don't know what to do with. Interpretive is a bit of a stretch. But anyway, it's similar. We start with an idea, and I scour the internet for images and things. I get big sheets of paper, and I draw 50, 60 ideas out and distill the ideas and work on themes and go down rabbit holes and come up with lots of sketches and drawings because, as she said, my job is to find the form. And once I get the form figured out, I kind of hold back on what materials I'm going to use, but generally it ends up, if it's going to be big, it ends up stainless steel because I trust it and it's strong and it's resistant. And then it's kind of like jewelry. I create the ring and then she puts the jewel in the ring. So I do all this work in the steel or sometimes bronze or whatever, and then nobody notices it because they're all looking at the color, which is great. I kind of like being anonymous, but I like to make the form strong. I have, originally I did so many drawings of buffaloes. It was like, it's a buffalo ranch, buffaloes, buffaloes, buffaloes. And then that idea of it being the migratory path of the birds, it just clicked, And then the notion of the glacial gorge, where I'm from in Ireland, in County Fermanagh, it's a glacial gorge. It goes right toward a huge big lake, 6 miles long, and then keeps going straight out to the west to Sligo. If you ever go to Sligo and you see the sunset in the glacial gorge between two mountains, it's absolutely stunning. So that idea of the earth being shaped by water or ice or some ancient movement, the geology of it. Yesterday I bought a book over at your merch or Merc shop, the geology book of the region, and so I'm nerding out now. I'm totally doing my homework now, a bit late, but we're doing it anyway. But all these images then can be put into the glass, and the community can be involved in the glass. And the great thing about glass is that unlike a painting or a traditional picture where the light kind of bounces off, the light goes through the glass. It's wild light, we call it when we work with glass outside. Wild light because it's a light from the nearest star, which is, of course, the sun, and all the other stars that you can see out here because there's no light pollution. So it's actually, you start thinking in geological terms of time, you start thinking in terms of how far the light traveled to get to your eyes, to pass through the glass, to become this shiny thing, because we all love shiny things. It's part of our nature, you know. We're like magpies, or, you know.
But it's the light of dead stars.
It is.
It's the light of dead stars. I mean, this is the silicon silica is the ingredient, and that's a product of dying stars. So you think about this, that we're capturing our lives, the story of our lives, in dying stars. How can you not feel a poetic moment and your heart leap, and the interpretive dance begins?
Alan, hearing you talk about how the glacial gorge reminded you of Ireland, and you talked about in Texas, the landscape felt similar. It's interesting that the two artist teams that weren't from here, there was still something about the landscape that felt familiar. And I think that that's a really interesting opportunity with the public art, is that you all are offering something new as a way for all of us to see something new, but still be touched with something familiar in us. And you're helping, I mean, I think Thane too, you're from here, but you're also helping folks rediscover the beauty of this place. And I just think that all of you are doing that in really interesting ways, but all of you have been touched in that way as well as artists, it seems. I'm really curious, this is a big endeavor for the state and is stretching the state in new ways. How are you as artists also being stretched in new ways with this art project?
Well, this piece is a very large object. Defying gravity with joy, as she says, and then I say brackets and structural engineering. So this is going to be huge. It's a huge amount of work. It's a huge object that's going in the landscape. So physically, it'll be. I don't tend to measure these things in, how much money we make. I measure it in how much it's going to hurt. And it's going to really hurt. It's going to hurt my hands. It's going to hurt my back. It's going to hurt my ankles. Everything's going to hurt. And
Feels like a very Irish way to measure it.
it is.
Yeah.
It's the way measuring stuff in pain. That's the real true measure. So, but I'm a delight. Remember. So it's going to be a big piece to make physically and emotionally and mentally, because once I start a thing, it has to be finished. So.
Well, one of the things about this thing that stretches us really is the idea of we manage groups, I mean, and so the idea of going out into every community and finding people to come and be part of it, and finding people who are reliable to work with us, and teaching people how to weld, which is a skill that a lot of people, particularly here, need to know. And working, and that whole, but as you yourself know, whenever you teach anybody anything, like welding or anything, it's such emotional, it's part of you always there. Your heart's there, you're trying, come on, this way, this is good, that's good, and you're always working with people. So the energy level, I think we're gonna be really, we've made a piece that's 250 feet long and 40 feet wide for Bellingham, Washington. It's big, but it's not a freestanding piece. So this brings with it all these other things that we've done incrementally, and it'll be done in sections. So it's not that overwhelming to do, but it's the idea of all the physical heart and energy and intellect it will take to do and reach across with people and say, let's do this together, let's partner. Because every time you say, let's partner with somebody, you're saying, here's my heart, where's yours? Can we work? Can we be a team? And that takes a lot of energy. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's going to really stretch us that way.
A few people have asked if I've done earthworks like this before, and I have not. I've done earthwork for more utility measures like foundations and basements and carpentry needs, and a lot of what I'm learning now is how to synthesize those processes into an art form. And there's a lot of consultation with engineers and looking at long-term plans for erosion control and drainage and soil structure. So I'm learning a lot just about, like, once you know what you're working with at the site, how best to work with what is there. And the ultimate goal for the finished piece is to be covered with native prairie grasses and wildflowers. And growing up in the region, that was a hard thing to find. Like, a lot of the grass we see is planted and invasive. A lot of fields are whittled down to one species. And so to intentionally try to recreate a place of biodiversity is a big challenge, and it's something that I'm excited to be, working along with local agronomists and other people who've made a stab at finding the plants that are from this place and letting them grow.
I know for me, one of the biggest challenges of this piece right off the bat, or a way that I will be stretched, is I will have to not only partner with local ceramicists and fire the community tiles in their kilns, which are, every kiln's different and behaves differently, so trying to kind of work with them ahead of time to make sure that the way that we make these tiles and the clay we're using and everything is going to work in the way that they fire. And also, I would really like to use native clay, which is something that you can't buy off the shelf. There are potters who are using native clay. They're mixing their own from the Hebron clay brick factory. You can get, the clay in powder form, but it's not just ready to use to make tiles or pottery. So it was very wonderful to meet Robin Reynolds, who is now semi-retired, but had Dakota Clay Works in Hebron. She made pottery out of Hebron clay for years, very knowledgeable, super interesting person. And she pointed me in the right directions of people to ask about native clays and glazes. And that's kind of where I'm going to be starting in my experiments in my shop, trying to get my hold of these materials, make samples. I put them through all these rigorous tests to make sure that they're appropriate for exterior tile, see if they pass. I love the idea of literally making these things from the ground here. Don't know if I can do it. It's going to be a very long science experiment, so that'll be a new stretch for me. Very excited, but also a little bit like, whew, how long is this going to take? Will it work? We'll see. So that's one of my challenges.
I think the main challenge for us will be that we're so far away, and there'll be a lot of going sort of back and forth, and a lot of it is just technical challenges. As far as any other challenges, every process is different as far as making a piece, and so you never know what to expect. And part of being an artist, or really just making anything, is sort of going on the fly and being able to roll with mistakes that inevitably will happen when things go wrong, and to not freak out and just be like, this is part of the process. The challenge of it was funny when we did our first site visit with Tobias, and we met with the Forest Service people, and there was a fellow there named Ian. Really, he's a nice guy. Didn't really say much during the site visit, but then at the end, he's like, people are going to shoot this thing, right? And I was just like, oh, okay. I'm not really sure what to take out of that, but I'm like, and then I started to think about it, and I'm like, okay, well, that may be part of the piece. Then if people want to shoot it, there's really nothing we can do to stop them. I can't, make it out of maybe bulletproof encasing somehow. I don't know. But as it's going to be challenging, but I'm just super excited about this project, more so than I have been in a long time.
It's so fun to always hear the creative process, first question, and then to really hear this answer to this question really shows how much artists still have to work in science and engineering and landscape architecture. There's just so much of the non-creative work that is part of the creative work, right? That there's a balance between all of that. That it takes all of that to move forward. So it's interesting to hear. There's time for questions if folks have any questions for the artists.
Yeah, actually, there's a few in the audience. If you can raise your hand if you're part of a cohort. I guess one, Eric. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Part of the ongoing engagement with the community is that each of the artists working, we're going to have an artist cohort assigned with us to further professional development and also, get to know people on a local basis and what lights them up, what they're inspired by. Thus far, back this spring, I gave a lecture over Zoom remotely with my cohort. We were able to just kind of take a broad stroke over the North Dakota environment and look at what makes this place special. How do we identify this place? How do you develop that skill of looking in your own backyard and seeing possibilities? And I think, in time, it'll be exciting to see how each of the artists respond to that. And ultimately, it's really, for me, a really personal way to just encourage people that, they have what it takes right now. Everybody has a different perspective, and it's important to bring that out and to show that. And you can start as small or large as you like. And I think then moving forward, we'll develop into something next year when the site is under construction, a workshop in person where we can be more practical. And, I like to work at scale. I can work through ideas, and I think one of the big ideas that I'm thinking of working with the cohort with is just, what are some tools and techniques to work in miniature and visualize things that are large scale? And it can get kind of comical if you just play with the scale and let something inform your idea. Thank you, Ria.
Other questions?
Yeah, we do work with a special architectural product that's supposed to be good at least for 50 years. But after 50 years, give us a call, and if it's failed, we'll come out. One of the reasons why we make them. Oh, you want to talk about that?
Just saying, it's like a rubber that you use for glazing. So it's actually the stuff you would use in windows, and it just goes on the edge. And what it does is it creates a barrier between the steel and the glass, because the steel will expand and contract at different temperatures, but the glass is not in sync with that. So if the steel expands too much, it will compress the glass, and there's nowhere to go for the glass to go. Therefore, you get a stress fracture. And so the rubber is just an intermediate to give it that little bit of give, because it doesn't expand or contract very much, the steel, but it's just enough because the glass is not flexible in that way. But it also seats it in the sculpture itself. But it's glazier grade kind of rubber that goes around the edges, and it holds it into the little housings and stuff. So we're kind of using architectural technology because of the scale of it,
One of the things we find about glass is that it's a lot of the stuff is keyed to hobbyists when you go to the store, and it's like, this is the N3000 glue, and it's great. Well, it isn't really great. So what we have to do is, it's fine enough, it's fine enough, but we're asking crazy stuff out of this. So we go to the architects, we go to architectural, and we use architectural grade stuff all the time. This glass that we use is shatter resistant, and it's actually covered with a non-polluting, eco-friendly, sort of covering to make it even more durable and to make it stand up this will last incredibly long. I mean, it's like what was that again? 2 galaxies or something?
The decay rate of glass would take 2 universes for it to decay completely. So that's not that we're guaranteeing it for 2 universes, but
give us a call.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions?
Each piece, there's 2 pieces of glass here, and that's what you see, but it'll be about 9, 12, somewhere in there. So it's not going to be like an inch. You don't want it that thick, because that it's funny. You think, oh, why isn't it an inch or something? Why don't you make it really big? Because that's actually more dangerous for the glass. It's just too much stress. It's like, I don't want to be that big. I'm sorry. 6 is the natural beginning of strength. 9 is usually what we work in. We're experimenting between 9 and 12. All the glass that we're going to be doing for this, we've gone out actually and got donations for steel and glass. We have $250,000 worth of product that's coming for this project, if we can get the funding for the rest of it. And it's like the glass itself is amazing. It's made by a company called Weishmark, and we usually work with Bullseye, but Weishmark has been around 120 years, and they're very well known for stained glass. So their fused glass is stained glass like coloring, you know what I mean? It's a little bit more subtle and more elegant, and it cuts like butter. It's amazing. But sorry, that was just a thing. But it does. It's amazing. But the point is that it has the same properties, and it's actually a little bit stronger. And so, it's just this amazing thing. You think, how is glass strong? Well, glass really is strong. It's actually very difficult to break this glass. Not that I want you to try, but if you get it actually covered, you can actually have this covered in the stuff in your car. You know how your windshield will just spider web, instead of break. So they have these things where they make fine art glass and shoot it with bullets. When you said that, I laughed. I thought, you should make that out of glass. It's great. But they can, so the bullet will just go right through it and the whole thing. Now this is shatter resistant, and so it will not explode. If somebody really did something to it, it may crack, but it's super hard to crack this stuff.
We have a few minutes just to wrap up. I thank the artists for sharing a bit about themselves and their process. And this, as we've talked about, with 8 large sculptures going across the state, it is a huge endeavor. And so I'd be curious what encouragement or advice each of the artists would offer as this really becomes, it's a co-creation. You cannot do this work without the whole community having a major lift for site permits and fundraising and all of these things. So what is your sort of advice and encouragement, having worked in public spaces before?
Well, we do this a lot. We've worked in Europe, we've worked here. We've worked for the last 10 years. We've made 30 sculptures in the last few years, actually, and many of them quite large. And the thing is, you got to come with us. We're fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an adventure. Each work is an adventure, and it's important. It's deadly important because, we don't have a lot of time here, and we work in permanent materials. So to leave behind a thing of beauty is one of the most important things for the next generation. We were here. We saw. We understood. And we worked together. Art is not a second thought. A lot of times they go, well, and then we'll get some art for that. But it's like, we should get some art for that. Should be the first thought. We should put our heart in this and our footprints and our generational gene pool. And if we cut ourselves, our DNA. But, that's what this is about. This is about the legacy that we leave. And if you're going to be legendary, if you're a North Dakotan who is legendary and you take up that reign, then you must leave a legacy. And we have to do it together. If everybody gave $5 to this project in this whole area, it'd be fine. But we also need $1,000 of your heart and $1,000 of your enthusiasm. And the questions, $1,000 of your questions. What do you mean silicone? That's a great question. So we can actually explain it not in lay people's terms, but in the actual terms so that you understand and everybody understands. And when you see it, it makes you go, yes. I love it. We did a piece downtown St. Paul, and they put it there because a lot of homeless people were there, and it was a rough area. And it was next to the Landmark Center, which is beautiful. But this was a beaten-up park that they didn't take care of next to a beautiful building. It was ridiculous, like a castle. And it was broken. Everything was broken up. And we put this thing called Uplift there. And it was 40 feet long and 20 feet high. And it was all these hot air balloons because that was the actual place in the world that the Zeppelin was created. that the Count Zeppelin was actually embedded during the Civil War down the street in Fort Snelling and said, you know what, these people are using these balloons for reconnaissance. That was his break year. He was a young man, it was crazy. Why can't we use balloons for travel? And he convinced those people in St. Paul to create a balloon so that people could get in it, and he sold rides, just down the streets of St. Paul, because the city uplifted him, and he thought about that, and so he uplifted people, and the Zeppelin became one of the first intercontinental ways to travel, and opened up, for airplanes and all these things. It went on for years and years and years until the Zeppelin exploded. Of course, we're not thinking about that. But the point is, before all the bad things happened, good things happened. So when we finished this piece, we weren't even finishing. We're just taking the ladders down, and these workers were coming from the building and lying down on the ground, which we never expected anyone to do, because there were all these twirling things, and it was beautiful, and they were taking selfies, and people got married in front of it. But what was interesting, we had high winds and storms that year, and homeless people found these, they would eventually twist off because it was so bad. 80-mile-an-hour winds can't really sustain this. But some of them would we only lost 2 or 3, but they would twist up, and they would see our phone number, and they would call our phone number, and they'd say, hey, I live over here, and I got your balloon. And we get there, and they'd come and give us the balloon. And they were homeless. And they said, we take care of this. Thank you. This is our living room. This is our place. Because that's where they charge their phones. So that taking care of something, that meant, and we never thought, well, what will the homeless people do for us? Will they take care of this? We never thought that, and now we always think that. What is every person going to do? Because them calling up and them making sure that it was okay and shooing off anybody who thought that they could do something to it and stuff, made that piece so special. It was a big Instagram hit. And as I say, people got married under it and everything. For one summer, it uplifted. And there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, sure. I just have something brief to add, which is that it helps if everybody's on the same page. The most difficulties I've encountered in public art are when you often had a city or government organization on one end and then a private entity on the other, both operating in the same space, not knowing that art's going in there. Then all kinds of weird stuff starts happening. So, if you have good community buy-in, which it seems like y'all do. Everybody we've talked to has been super excited, very supportive, already had so much help just in the 5 days we've been here, pointing us in good directions. But yeah, just making sure that everybody, knows what's going on and supports the project makes it all go better.
Real quick, too, I just wanted to add what I really appreciate about what I've seen in the selection process that I would encourage the council to keep doing is just the wide variety of styles of artwork that really, it's just in the 3 that are right here, very different, but just doing an excellent job of sort of capturing the essence of a place without being obvious and kitschy. I think it's fantastic, really well thought out, and yeah, I would just, keep doing what you're doing, because I think it's great.
Yeah, I think for me, the enthusiasm and anticipation in each of the communities, projects I've ever worked on, that's what keeps it going. Like, the reward at the end is that you have this enthusiasm and pride of place, and it really stimulates people's curiosity. And I'm one who really believes that reality as we know it is quite malleable. So anytime there's an opportunity for people to really be visionary and imagine something, and with this we actually have the possibility to make that a reality, it's like a love letter to North Dakota, and that alone is the reward.
Thank you, artists, for bringing your love to North Dakota. Thank you to the Arts Council for having and hosting this convening. We look forward to the unfolding of all of these artworks. So stay tuned. Thank you.